Ashley, and I'm a junior at the University of Mount Union, and today I'm here to talk to you about writing papers. So the first thing I do whenever I'm writing a paper is make an outline. This may seem pretty juvenile, seeing as how we've been told to make an outline since the 4th grade, but it's actually what has been my number one key in writing papers and being successful at it. So obviously we've got the first introduction, then we've got the body, and then we've got the conclusion. Since I find the introduction and the conclusion the hardest to write, I leave them for the last part. So I start with the body. This is where the meat of all the paper is going to be. I try and break this down into 3 different sections, and I do this by figuring out what is my paper trying to accomplish. For example, I just wrote a paper for a sales class in which we had to interview a salesperson, and once going through the prompt, I realized that the 3 main things that my teacher wanted out of this paper were key skills required for the job, what the salesperson needed to know about their product or service, and how they prepared for sales calls. Once I figured this out, I was able to use all the research that I'd gathered and all the information I'd gathered from talking with my interviewee to create 3 major points. After I gathered my 3 main points, I tried to go through all the research that I had and all the information that I had to pick out what I thought was most important to build up these points. This may be a statistic, it may be a quote, it may be something I found online, whatever I thought was the strongest. And from there, I built around it, using little quotes here and little quotes there, some information I'd learned in class, filler sentences that build around those 3 main points. After writing these 3 points, keep in mind that's more than 3 paragraphs, it's just 3 points that can be divided up into a lot of paragraphs. I try to think of what order I can put these points in so that my paper will read the best. And it depends on the subject. Sometimes I like to have my strongest point as the first point so that I really wow my reader at the beginning, but sometimes I like to have my strongest point at the end, so in case they're kind of leading off towards the end of the paper, I gain their interest again. So now that I've written my body, it's a lot easier to write my introduction and conclusion. A tip that I always keep in mind when writing my introduction is I try to use a quote. Almost every paper I've written, I've had a quote as the first or second line of the paper, and it helps to kind of engage your reader and get them interested in what you're writing about. It's some kind of quote, maybe from someone who's important in what we're learning, or maybe it's just about the subject matter that I'm learning, but it helps me when I'm writing papers, and it's just a tip to keep in mind. Now, for the conclusion, it's a little bit more dull. I usually just restate the 3 main points in different words, and then fill in the final sentence that helps to draw my entire paper to a close. The last tip I'll leave you with is that once you're done writing your paper, take it to your writing center. The writing center is such a great resource. We have one at Mount, and we have students there that get hundreds on all of their papers. Whether it be that you think you've read a great paper, but you never know when you've missed those grammar points, because I miss grammar points all the time. And if your school doesn't have a writing center, it can be really helpful even for your roommates to read it out, because they'll be able to read just with once through how your paper sounds. Does it flow? Are there big grammar mistakes? I use my roommates all the time, and I also visit the writing center when need be. I hope these tips help out and your next paper is a 100% success.